Welcome to Knitting the Notes with Dr. B. Today's video is aimed at piano teachers, but of course anyone is welcome to watch it, and I do hope that you find this something in here that is of value to you. I wanted to go over the resources that I had referred to when I created the newsletter article that preceded the previous 3 videos. And I don't have all the books with me. Some of them are still back in my office, but I will mention them all. And there is a transcript that is transcribed for the video. So if you have a question about something, you can always refer back to the video. And if you have a book that you really find helpful that you'd like to share, please mention it in the comments. I do have the comments set for review because I'm using these videos with my piano students, and sometimes there are people out there who make comments that are not appropriate. So I will be checking the comments daily, and if you have written a comment, I will put it in the comment section so everyone can see it. So first of all, let me say, for the advanced teaching and advanced students, I did ask my piano professor at Florida State University what she did for technique. This is Dr. Carolyn Bridger. And she said that with her advancing piano students, she told me that she liked to progress from selected Heller exercises, Stephen Heller exercises. I think almost everyone has taught some of those. They're in almost every intermediate book. And then she moved on to Kramer or Kramer, C-R-A-M-E-R. And then she moved on to Pischna, P-I-S-C-H-N-A. Those are fairly advanced exercises. And then for the truly advanced students, the Opus 1 list etudes. I myself have not learned any Opus 1 list etudes, so I'll have to check those out. I like to use the Francis Clark Musical Fingers books. And there are 4 volumes, but all of my volume 3s have walked away. I have these in multiple copies for my college students. So everyone gets to start with book 1, and it covers starting with the 5-finger patterns, and there's pictures of hand shape, and it moves very, very gently but firmly forward through all manner of technical things that you have to do, from wrist drop to wrist rotation to back and forth, and scales, and they have separate excellent exercises for practicing your scales with some tone clusters. And by the end of book 4, so here's book 1, book 2, you can see is doing a lot with like Alberti bass type things. Chromatic scales get introduced in book 2. They only give 1 fingering, so I might do a video on the fingering Peter Takash taught me at Oberlin. There are 3 chromatic scale fingerings, but I don't know the 3rd one. If somebody does, please share it. Then volume 3 progresses further, and then volume 4 is for late intermediate, early advanced students, special chords patterns, 7th chords, arpeggios, all of that sort of thing. So I like to use these. They're I do about a page or at least a page a week with students. And what I find with technique exercises, or anything that you're trying to do that's in addition to repertoire, years ago I read an article which made the argument that if you let the student set the pace, who may or may not have practiced, the student who may or may not have practiced set the pace, and they come and they haven't practiced, your tendency is going to be to practice in the lesson, which is fine. But then you never get to the extra stuff. So their argument, which I find to be mostly true, is it only takes 2 or 3 minutes at the beginning of a lesson to do whatever your project is. If it's technique, if it's scales, if it's sight reading, do that first, set the tone. It puts you more or less in charge of the pace of the lesson, and then you can go on with what the student was supposed to practice. So I would say, except for the very beginning students, lately I've been using Piano Safari older beginner books for my very beginners, and they have a technique book that goes along with them, and they also have sight reading cards for the elementary level books and sight reading exercises in their theory and sight reading book that goes along with a repertoire and technique book. So I would probably just focus on those. Although if I have a student who needs to move quickly, then I add the musical fingers book on top of that. Another book that I own and have not fully explored are these two books by Seymour Bernstein, who also is now one of the contributors to Tonebase, the subscription piano lesson, advancing piano lesson subscription that you can get. And I think if you search, there's probably some free videos with Mr. Bernstein. He's written a lovely book, I think it's called With My Own Two Hands. And I've seen it years ago in workshops. This one is for young children. And he does a lot with the piano mechanism itself and the touch and the escapement level, and using a pencil to, first of all, he does an interesting exercise with the pencil. He says, grip the pencil and really, really tight, and grip that pencil and feel how tight your muscles are. And then grip the pencil with only the amount of tension that you need to grip the pencil. And that's the amount of tension you want to play the piano with, nothing more than that. So that's useful. And he does a lot of exercises with loud and soft, just using the pencil eraser to depress the keys, feeling the escapement level on a well-regulated piano, which many of us don't have access to, and things like that. And then a lot of technique geared for young children with pretty colored pictures and pretend you're gently petting a kitten, pretend you're hugging your mother, that sort of thing. And then he has a book for the teachers and the advancing students, 20 lessons in keyboard choreography. And one of my projects is going to be to work my way through this book so I can speak more knowledgeably about it, but it would not be a bad thing for piano teachers to own and to study. All these books, for the most part, should be available on any used book site. Amazon used books, Alibris, Abe Books. You don't need to spend the big bucks. Some of them, when they're out of print, they become extremely expensive. So it would be better to find them used. Also, used bookstores. If you like to go through used bookstores, look in the music section and see if you find anything. Now, I'm going to save the best for last, at least in my opinion, best. But ones I don't have copies of, the Piano Guild syllabus. If you have access to a Piano Guild syllabus, or you know a teacher who does Guild auditions, ask them to look at one of their Guild syllabi. They come out every single year. So a piano teacher who does the Guild auditions should have a couple and might be able to lend you one. And in there they have, by level, what scales, chords, arpeggios each level student should be able to do. In the auditions themselves, you don't have to make your students do all those things. You get to pick and choose. But the nice thing about their chart is that it tells you which ones they expect a student to be able to do, should they choose to test out on those. I own the Joan Last Freedom and Piano Technique books from Oxford University Press. Those are lovely exercises, but they don't actually explain how to do them for those of us who might like an explanation of that sort. Excuse me. I use the Paul Pallei, P-O-L-L-E-I, Essential Technique for the Pianist, which is published by Alfred. That's a required book for all my piano students at the college level. And it includes a lot of different five-finger exercises, all the scales, and other exercises of a more advanced nature that many students don't get to. A book that you would need to find used is by Vicki King, V-I-C-K-I-K-I-N-G, Playing the Piano Naturally. It's a very, very thin book. It has limited availability, but if you find it, grab it. And what else here? Sorry for referring to my notes. Those are the ones that I want to talk about in this video, I think. Also, a book called Creative Piano Teaching. This must be drying here. By James Like. This one has lost its cover. I have at least 2 editions of this book. And there's a 1996 edition that I might have given away, and then this is the 4th edition. You can find all of these things as used books. And both of these books, both editions I mean, will have a chapter on technique. In the 1996 edition, I believe it's chapter 11, and I believe the co-author is Yvonne Enoch. In the 4th edition, and I can't tell you what year that's from because that page went away, it's chapter 8, and it's written by Karen Krieger and James Like, Technical Development for the Young Pianist, on page 95. And that includes how to sit at the bench, footstools, how to have your posture, your arms, and some very simple exercises. Here's a wrist rotation exercise by Karen Krieger. I use her book, which the name of it is going to not come out right if I say it right now, for piano class. Lots of pictures of how to get good hand position. And then some finger exercises. She also puts these in her class piano book. Tetrachord scale studies, and so forth. Each book also has a chapter on intermediate technique. And in the 1996 edition, which you can easily find used, I think it's Ian Hobson does a chapter that's got the word intermediate in it. And then in this 4th edition, Catherine Rowland has written a chapter 30 called Technique and Artistry. There's also a pedaling chapter, Practicing Techniques by Jeffrey Hayden, Fingering Principles, Memorizing by Internalizing for the intermediate students. So there's an article by Ruth Sonzenska in there, Gail Berenson. Everybody and their dog has written a chapter in this book. Catherine Rowland also has a series out that has one book of technique with very descriptive titles for each technical movement, like under over wrist rolls. That always reminds me of sandwiches. And a book that she has her own composed pieces in, and then a book of classical repertoire. And so sometimes I shift between different things for different students, but sometimes I have students that I think that would be appropriate for. I usually use the technique book with the classical repertoire book. And in the classical repertoire book, she kind of indicates which of the technical approaches you should take to achieve the musical indications in the score. So that's it for now. I always think I'm going to make a short video and then they get rather long. Thank you for watching Knitting the Notes with Dr. B. On Monday, I plan to post a video that will show you 2, possibly 3 different games for teaching beginner students the groups of 2 and 3 black keys. The 3rd one is all depending if I can find the toys that go along with that. It's little, at the education store, it's butterflies for the 3 black keys and frogs for the 2 black keys. I have a game, all the games do something like that, some sort of manipulative, and then you get to go from there. So stay tuned, and thank you again. Bye-bye.